We've almost done just about every position group you can do for this style of video, and up next in this one, we'll be doing the defensive line, so that's going to be combining defensive ends and defensive tackles, so whoever the best is between the two positions is going to be who we follow, and we got 25 prospects here for you today. Our first guy is a big, tall defensive tackle who is strong, can hit, can stuff that run. He looks like he's going to be a very nice player. Now, I always do hover over Alabama because, you know, you want to be on a team that can actually acquire the rights to scout the players and be on their board. So this was just pure coincidence that the first player just happened to go to Alabama. But Alex Paulo, 79 overall, elite dev, really nice looking, good skill caps. And you know how these videos usually work. The first couple of minutes is just going to be us scouting and getting these prospects into the world of college football so that we can eventually see them develop to the point where they're on the field. Second guy going to Wisconsin. And one thing that's going to be different about this video compared to some of the previous ones is I had been putting like the depth chart where they are in the depth chart on the screen. You could be a high overall player and not get as many snaps as someone significantly lower than you because of the specialist on the depth chart, like the rush ends and rush interior guys. So where they are in the depth chart doesn't exactly matter, and just because someone's a lower overall doesn't mean they won't play. Just because someone is a higher overall doesn't mean they will play. So I found it pretty pointless to find that on the screen because I do track where they are on the depth chart, and it just was completely random. Alex Paulo, he got onto the field early on in his career, and Kendricks as well, so both of them already getting some playing time. As per usual, when we see opportunities to hop in for playoff games and to get these guys out onto the field, we're going to do that, though I don't know how many, scenarios where the defensive linemen are going to come out here and have major impacts on the game are going to be, but if that ends up happening, you will see it. So we already got a nice start when it comes to Paulo being pretty nice, elite dev. Kendricks, elite dev, got onto the field early on and had some production. And then the next guy we have, Trevor Pride at Miami, he's also elite dev. So that's 3 straight to start that being elite dev players. So also for those new to this style of video, if I don't show a player's statistics or I don't show what they did throughout the season, it means they just basically didn't play. So, not everyone's going to have a vast amount of statistics to show you every season. We got our first bust of the video in Dylan Hyde. So, we're going to see what that bust to gem ratio looks like. And Paulo looking to be a very nice player so far in his career. And, if he keeps that, upward trajectory of development, he could be something. But when you hit the transfer portal, you lose out on a year of development. So he didn't really need to transfer. It's weird, transferring away from Alabama. He didn't need to. He was a starter at Alabama, but he felt the need to transfer, so he's at Texas A&M. He doesn't jump any overalls, but he does get a couple of overall boosts because of the coach, and maybe that's part of the reason he wanted some coach boost overall. But Hendricks takes a very, very big leap. I mean, jumping up 8 overalls already, so that elite dev kicking in very nicely. Pride, on the other hand, the elite dev, but doesn't jump up much at all, just a +1. So you're still going to see some high variance in the developments of players, even 2 guys who have the same development trait. So Dylan Hyde, despite being a bust, I mean, he's still pretty good, 78 star. Maybe the bust is the fact that he's not elite, but I mean, 78 star is still more than workable. And while we had a bust last year, how about a gem this year? 90 tackling, 93 strength, and he looks to be a monster. We also got some playoff action here. I guess Paulo was correct, transferring it to Texas A&M where he can get into the playoff mix, and a sack there on Notre Dame, and the punt is away. Texas A&M going to have an opportunity to try to get a game-winning drive, and the punt is going to be returned, but the fumble, and it's going to be picked up by Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is going to have an opportunity to tack on a little bit more to their lead. They can't get into the end zone. They get stopped, but a free field goal basically. And now Texas A&M suddenly, they need a touchdown if they were going to come out here and pull this thing off. Dropping to throw, he's turning, getting hit as he's throwing, incomplete. It's 4th down, and they punted the football away, which is very questionable because in a situation like that, you just may never see the football again. And Notre Dame picking up 1 first down, make it 2 first downs, and just like that, you don't see the football again. Punting the football with that little time to go is a dangerous move, and they trusted the defense. It just didn't work. Paulo, though, he did his job. He had his even better season than he did at Alabama, and Hendrick's still kind of getting in the mix there as a rotation guy. He goes to the NFL, though, and he's going to be our first guy who is just gone to the NFL as soon as he got the opportunity. Paulo, unfortunately, just didn't get better for his final season, which is really disappointing. You understand that he misses out on some development because of that transfer year, but you would have liked to see him going into that 5th season, him to take a leap maybe close to a 90 overall, but that just did not happen. Pride, on the other hand, is getting a little bit better from that very poor jump that he took in his freshman season, a +1 overall. Dylan Hyde, he's doing his thing. I mean, for a bust, he's not looking too bad, and we're going to see if he can continue to get better and grow. But for Paulo, now he's kind of on the fringe of being drafted. Once you're in that mid-80s area. Newton, on the other hand, he is awesome. He's an 80 overall, so that's the highest we've found so far. Only star dev, so maybe you're not thrilled with that being a gem, but I mean, an 80 overall is something I'm going to be pretty happy with. We have our next guy, Colin Kruger, #1 player in the nation, and Alex Paulo finishes out his career a decent amount of production. Trevor Pride, on the other hand, he broke his tailbone, and he didn't really get to play a full season, even though when he did play, he wasn't too bad. Paulo, unfortunately, doesn't get drafted. I felt like he was more than worthy of getting drafted, but he was right on that overall fringe of, you know, mid to high 80s. Like, if you're like 88 plus, you get drafted. If you're like 87, 86, you're a maybe, and I felt like his production was good enough, but I guess the NFL just didn't agree. Pride, coming back from his injury, is going to take a little jump. Hyde does not really get all that much better, so maybe that's, you know, where the bust is coming in. Greg Newton, though, what a monster. I mean, +8 overalls off the bat, and he is looking like he either could go to the NFL very quickly, and just while he's here in college, he's going to be impossible to run at. So Colin Kruger, another star dev player, so we've been pretty good on the elite and star front. No impacts and definitely no normals yet, but Colin Kruger is going to have a fun co-star with them because he's got John Wick as his other D tackle, so Michigan should be pretty set and fine. We have our next guy, Lashley, Jaleel Lashley. That is another gem player for us, so back into the playoffs, one of our teams goes, and we're going to have Michigan. Colin Kruger, for his credit, does get to come out here and play very early on, and Michigan is going to get an interception in the first play that we spectate, and it's going to be a pick six, and Michigan has the lead. They missed the 2-point conversion, but they're up by 1. It's 16-50 with a minute and a half to go, and Tennessee trying to get on that game-winning field goal drive. They are already close. Now backed up, 2nd down and long, dropping the throw, and they're going to go outside, intercepted, and the Wolverines take the football back, and they're going to take this one home. A 1-point win where they basically got all their points in the final quarter. So Colin Kruger and John Wick are going to be moving on to the next round. They're facing Middle Tennessee, and it's a 3-point game, so really close, low-scoring one. The defense doing their job, holding Middle Tennessee to 7 points. The offense got to pick it up, though. They get a stop, backed up, and now it's going to be down to a 4th and 1 try, where Michigan is just going to try to seal the deal and try to end it on this possession. They get the first down. Crazy call, but when you've only allowed 7 points all game, I guess you could trust your defense in case you don't get it. They're going to get the first downs, and they indeed end it on that possession. Onto the semifinals, Michigan goes, and they are comfortably beating Missouri here, but Missouri trying to get it to a 1-score game, and this defense is playing phenomenal here. Just so little points allowed, 7 points, 6 points, and even the Tennessee game, just 15 points allowed. I mean, that is a great average. They're in the national championship that didn't quite go the same way. Syracuse makes it to the national title game and absolutely stomps out Michigan. So, you know, we were looking like a potentially legendary defensive performance here, but it gets stomped out by the Orange. A little bit less on the action for Pride, so his numbers take a step down. And then when we have Hyde, I mean, he's getting in the mix a little bit more, but he's not getting a whole lot better overall-wise. Kruger, nice to see him getting involved as a freshman, and Lashley's going to go to Nebraska. So Pride takes a small jump going into his senior season, and he is also another one of those players right on the fringe of being drafted. That, you know, 86, 87 range, so we'll see if he can maybe get to that next step, get to 88 overall throughout the season. Dylan Hyde, on the other hand, he's just not progressing, and it's interesting because on paper, looking at a 78 star, you'd think he'd get a lot better, but he was a bust, so I don't know if that actually ends up factoring into his development and how good he does develop. Even if you say star, does the fact that he's a bust mean that he does just develop a little slower? Because it feels like it with him. Newton, on the other hand, he's having no problems developing. He had that +8 in that first season. Only jumps up +1, but now he's just kind of at the point where he's already like a, round 2, round 3 type of guy, and he could keep getting a little bit better and push himself into a first round level player, so he's already NFL bound as long as everything goes well with him. And look at how good Jaleel Lashley is. Awesome skill caps, 80 overall, elite development, and he has a chance to be maybe the best player that we can have here, as he's got that 80 plus overall, which is already hard enough to find with the elite dev. I mean, Newton was 80 overall star, and we've already seen how good he is. We got some playoff action here, as Miami is going to be in here with Trevor Pride. They're going to take care of Wake Forest pretty easily. Wake Forest gets that last touchdown to make it a 2-score game, but they take care of business, and they'll be moving on to the next round. And they got Oregon here in a 14-9 game where Oregon has the football with just a couple of minutes to play, and they got a first down play there into enemy territory, and now at about the 30-yard line, dropping the throw. Oregon has it outside. I got it for the first down marker, and he was wide open so he could turn it upfield, get him into the red zone. And Oregon trying to take that lead with about 2 minutes to play, and they got an open man for the touchdown. Oregon 2-point conversion to make it a field goal game. They throw wide open, and they got it. So Miami's now got to go to the offensive side of the football, get themselves down the field, maybe try to force overtime here as they throw a deep bomb on the first play. And it doesn't matter about a field goal. Why even talk about that when you're getting a one-play touchdown at the 2-minute warning? And now Oregon's got to go back down the field to do it all over again. Throwing over the middle, but they got another big play, and Oregon's going to go right back at him to the end zone. He gets tracked down at the 1. Great pursuit there. Now it's 3rd down and goal, and Oregon running. Quarterback brought down, and can they get a miracle goal line stand after that insane chase down? 4th down and goal, and the quarterback going to scramble, and he's going to get it in. Touchdown Ducks. And that was so close to being able to pull off that 4-down stand at the goal line. Now Miami, I don't think they got a one-play touchdown in them, but they got a big play to start their drive, and now under a minute to play, dropping to throw, and they go outside. That's gonna be an incredible grab along the sidelines, and they are on the edge of field goal range. Draw play, catches them off guard, and gets them enough yards to go and kick this field goal through the uprights. And we're going to overtime here. Oregon, Miami, not done yet. Miami throwing, got to the first down marker. Goal to go at about the 3-yard line. First down. We'll hand it off to the running back, who will find the open lane into the end zone. And Miami, they're going for 2 here. They're trying to just lock this game up. They don't want to go to extra overtimes, but they're not going to get it. So now Oregon, a touchdown, an extra point, wins this game. And they're going to throw one outside. That's going to be broken tackle and goal to go. And Miami's decision could come back to bite them. Split shotgun, dropping back, and clean pocket outside. Caught for the touchdown. And Oregon's going to kick the extra point and win it. And Miami's decision backfires. And that's going to end the career of Pride, who had a very solid senior season. Dylan Hyde sack numbers going up. Newton finally gets to play. I mean, we know he's talented, but Texas is just so stacked. Kruger's numbers go down. And unfortunately for Trevor Pride, didn't get drafted. They're a little bit more stingy when it comes to drafting these defensive linemen. It seems like 87 even isn't enough. Dylan Hyde, on the other hand, he is still just very tiny growth. I mean, just +1 overall is just not enough, especially with how crazy it seems like with how stingy these teams are in the NFL with drafting these defensive linemen. Something tells me Newton's not going to have an issue with that. I think he's going to be A-okay going most likely in the first round, and we're going to see just how much he could wreck the games here in his what would likely be final season. Kruger, had a little bit of a down year, but he takes a big step up, and now he is at that 90 overall level. So, I mean, we're going to have a potential for a couple of guys to come out and declare. I mean, Kruger just in his 3rd season. Lashley didn't really see the field, and unfortunately for how high he started and what his development is, just a +2 in overall, You'd like to see that get a little bit better, but hopefully Nebraska lets him actually see the field this time around. And then with the new guy, Barry Mays, going to Clemson, he is pretty standard 79 star. That seems to be around about a benchmark for what we've seen for these guys, considering every single one has been at least star or elite. And this guy right here, Matt Sullivan, I mean, he's a speed rusher who's got some nice athleticism, but also has really nice strength at his size and everything. Really fun player, it looks like. We got good news and bad news for this season. The good news is Newton and Kruger both made All-American. The bad news is they're both hurt at the end of the season, so we're not even going to get to see them. It's crazy how we've seen a little bit more injury troubles so far. I mean, both these players really good, and I mean, Kruger, I don't know why he's making All-American with how little he played, but I guess. Dylan Hyde doesn't get drafted, just wasn't high enough overall. Newton goes in the first round, no surprise. Kruger goes in the first round, no surprise. So both of them are really good players, two of the best that we have had. And Sullivan is going to go to Penn State. Lashley is going to be back here as we try to kind of recoup some players, because we had 2 declares and 1 graduate. I mean, you know, a 3rd year, a 4th year, and a 5th year player all left us at the same time. So we're going to be trying to, you know, recoup some of our talent here as we wait for one of these guys to get onto the field and, you know, have a breakout opportunity. I'm a little disappointed so far with Lashley, though he's not bad or anything, but I feel like next season, if he gets the opportunity, that's kind of the one where he takes that big jump into like the 90 overalls. I kind of notice when, you know, the guys are a little bit slower to get onto the field. They do, once they get there and put up some numbers, they take that one massive step, like a +7, +8. Next guy up, Tommy Manley. He's a pretty decent player, and for this upcoming season, we only had one guy even play. Lashley didn't play much. I mean, only 7 tackles, but I mean, when he did play, 5 sacks. So, I mean, he didn't play much. He didn't get much better. So, this is really underwhelming for Lashley. 87 overall is good, but I mean, when you're starting as 80 overall elite, and, you know, Nebraska is pretty stacked, so he's really buried on the depth chart right now. Like, 87 is kind of like a bare minimum for Nebraska to play. I mean, they have a bunch of high 80s, low 90s players, so unfortunately, he's just kind of gotten lost in the shuffle, lost in the mix. And even though he came out there and had 5 sacks and really limited downs, probably like 1 to 200 downs, he's not gonna play. Matt Sullivan, though, I have some excitement for him. He seems to be a really good player if he could get that big step. Manley goes to Kentucky. He looks like he could be okay. He's got lesser in the skill cap department, so maybe his ceiling is a little bit more capped, but you could definitely still see him getting into that high 80s potentially. Ty Dorsey, our next player, is a defensive tackle, and we move on to the season where Lashley did not play. Mays played 1 down, and Sullivan was the only guy who got any sort of action. So unfortunately, Lashley, 87 overall, he didn't play, he didn't get drafted. And again, he was an 87 overall. He was like right on the fringe. And I know if he would have played, he would have like gotten enough skill points probably to get to like an 88. Because once you're an 88 overall, you're pretty locked into being drafted. 88 is like, you don't go undrafted many times when you're 88. But unfortunate for him, he's going to be probably like the biggest disappointment of the video. Sullivan takes a nice big jump, and he is at that point 88 overall, where he's probably going to be drafted. And Manley, I didn't even catch this in the transfer portal, but he did transfer, so I was able to find him. He went to Ohio State. Interesting that he just commits to Kentucky and then immediately bails to go to Ohio State, so that's going to hurt his development. I already said his skill caps are pretty limiting, so him losing out on that year of development is going to be a little rough, and we'll see if he could kind of, you know, bounce back when it comes to his development and become a nice player. Ty Dorsey going to Oregon is our first impact player. So it took a while, but finally someone who is not star or elite. When it came to the next guy, Rashard Elkins, I don't know where the clip went of me scouting him. I couldn't find it for some reason. You didn't miss anything. He was just a regular. He wasn't a bust, wasn't a gem. He was pretty standard for when it came to these interior defensive linemen. So you didn't really miss anything, but I apologize that the clip is not there and that I couldn't show it to you. But nothing special. Sullivan, on the other hand, though, is very special. He is looking like a monster, and I'm surprised that he's at a point where he could have declared for the draft, and now maybe he probably will declare for the draft this upcoming season. I mean, he's looking amazing. Manley still sticking around here. He's not doing much, but he's sticking around and he's slowly getting very minorly better, I guess. He's, I guess, a decent rotation guy for Ohio State. And unfortunately, we got our first casualty of the video, that being Ty Dorsey. He was our first impact player, the only player that we had found below star or elite. Elkins is also impact, so we go and have like 10 straight star elites, and now we have back-to-back impacts. But it's not looking good for Elkins, because the only person that we got that was impact immediately got cut by Oregon. So I guess if you're just not a star or elite, you're not cut out to be at Oregon. Our next guy, nothing crazy here. Mays, took him a while, but he finally played a minor amount of snaps. Sullivan, double-digit sack season for him. Mays, no surprise, doesn't really get drafted, even though he was an 86 overall. Georgia's going to land the next guy. And Sullivan, I'm surprised he's still sticking around. He's going to play a 5th season in college football, and he's going to be rewarded with a 93 overall rating. I guess he just loves it here at Penn State, because he could have declared twice now if he really wanted to and gotten drafted, and he's sticking around. I mean, the first time around he probably would have been like a mid-round pick. The next time around, though, last season, he could have been like a second rounder, maybe snuck into the first, but I guess he wants to just be like the top 10 overall pick, and I can't blame him, I guess, because now he's like the best player that we've seen in this video. So he's definitely going to be in the running for, that end of video best of the best list. Elkins, him being an impact development and all, shouldn't be surprising that he did take a big step up, but disappointing still. And Georgia's got themselves an okay edge rusher here, but I want to see some action. I want to see Sullivan in some action. And this might be our best guy yet. I mean, he's a near 300-pounder with 81 speed and 90-plus strength and the finesse move and all these other abilities. We do get to see Penn State in the playoffs, so let's hop into things here. Sullivan is going to be an All-American player, but let's see what this team can do. They're going to have a handoff here, and on the first play that we're spectating, how does this always happen? On the first play when we get something big happening, and a broken tackle sprays into the end zone. Well, let's get that defense out there on the field. Let's see if they can stop this Texas Tech offense. Not on that play, as it's a double-digit yard gain for the first down marker, and a little read option, and Texas Tech got some room, and they're going to be past the 40-yard line, so already in field goal range. They're jumping ahead, 3rd down and 1 inside the 30-yard line, throwing outside. That's going to be caught for the first down. And you don't want to leave too much time if you're going to go and score a touchdown here. Don't want to give Penn State too much time to potentially go and get a game-winning drive, but you still have to convert that touchdown. It's 3rd and long now, and they need a big play here, and they're going to hand it off. Little questionable call here, as they're going to hand it off and settle for a field goal. We've already seen this happen where you kick a field goal, you give the ball back with under 3 minutes to go. You might not see the football again. You need to stop, and if you're allowing big chunk runs like that, you're not going to be able to see that football. It's going to be 3rd down, under 2 minutes to play, and timeouts are at a premium, and they got the big time game sealing play potentially. 3rd down and 5 to put it to bed for good, and Penn State throwing 1st down, and they make sure that Texas Tech doesn't see that football. You got to go for it. You got to be more aggressive. And maybe they thought that run play would get them even more yards to set up a 4th down try. I don't know. But it's not going to matter for Penn State. At least a 26-7 beating put it on them by Alabama. So they're going to win a playoff game, but no further than that. And Sullivan, yeah, he's a beast. He's an absolute monster. And another double-digit sack season for him. A clear-cut top 5 overall draft pick probably. So major success for him. And we got LSU racking up that D tackle. Manley, I mean, he hadn't been doing too much when it came to his development. I mean, he had been low 80s, but taking a nice little jump here. It took him a while. I mean, he had been hovering in the low 80s, and he had to hit the transfer portal. He had to wait till his 5th season, but he's finally a nice player, and he hits what I thought would be his ceiling, which is that high 80 overall mark, and he's going to be an 88, so he's going to potentially put himself in play for an NFL spot if he can, have a productive and relevant season. I always try to be pretty decent when it comes to pronouncing these names, but if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Dante Domani got to be one of the coolest names I have found in these videos. So, I mean, imagine that guy chasing you down off the edge. So he's got to be good. I mean, the name he passes the name test. So this guy over here for LSU, I thought was maybe the best player that we have found. He is at least the best D tackle that we had found. 79 overall star dev, so didn't quite hit that 80 overall mark that I thought he could. Manly, I mean, despite being an 88 overall, just doesn't see the field all that much. Ohio State's just that stacked, but he was good enough, I guess. He again, 88 overall is once you hit that, like, you're too good not to be drafted. But I do think that there are other players better. This is a really weird situation. Elkins, this isn't the preseason. I always do all this before the season. He has a broken femur. I don't know how this happened. Maybe this happened end of last season, but even still, would it have lasted that long? I don't know, but he's going into his next season out for the season. So he's not gonna play. That's a really weird thing that I've never seen before. And like I said, I do all these in the preseason before even week 0. So he didn't play yet, so it's not like this injury occurred during the year. So I don't know what happened there, but he's not playing this season. It's weird because injuries haven't been that big of a deal so far. I mean, we've had a couple of guys get banged up, a couple of guys miss, you know, part of a season. But I mean, that's a season-ending injury. We've had multiple instances where these players are just hurt at the end of the year, so a lot more injuries kind of being the hurdle for this video. Not as much people getting released and cut from their schools. It's just been a lot of injury trouble so far this video. Well, Domani and the Bulldogs find themselves in the second round of the playoffs after a first round bye, and they are up by 7 over Michigan. And they got the ball, you know, Michigan goes, they score a touchdown to make it a 1-score game, but kicking the ball back to Georgia means that they're going to have the opportunity to put it away. And with a couple of runs and running the clock and field goal range, the field goal is good. And in a 2-score game with a minute to play and not really much else you can do, Michigan's going to go down and Georgia's going to move on to the semifinals pretty easily. So in the semifinals, they got Texas Tech, and Texas Tech back being a contender here. They are a very good team. And Georgia, look at their quarterback go, stiff arming a person and running for a first down. It's a 9-7 game, so it's not been a lot of offense here, but they got a little bit of offense going this time around on the RPO, and the break and the tackles and the stiff arms doing Georgia a lot of work. The run to the outside is going to have them go towards the marker for the first down, brought down just shy, 3rd down and inches, but you can also get a touchdown here, throwing end zone, and they got it for the touchdown. It is 14-9, so now this defense is going to be able to tee off and just pressure the quarterback, but you're going to put him under pressure and leave him an opportunity to find an open man, and a big play, 3rd down and 12 now, throwing, and a lot of time, and he's eventually going to find an open man. The pass rush not doing their thing right now, and you need to hold them out of the end zone here. 2nd down and 4, throwing, and they got nowhere to go with the football. He fumbles it, and the pass rush finally gets in. Georgia picks it up, and with 2 minutes to play, opportunity to chew this clock out, handoff, and they're going to have another fumble, and now this time it's Georgia putting it on the ground, and Texas Tech picks it up, and now the Red Raiders have an opportunity to get back in this, and throwing on the outside, and this is going to be intercepted, and that's going to be the game, it looks like, if they can go and get themselves one more first down, throwing, and they got a first down, and a lot more. Get down, he does, and Georgia, a little bit of a wild finish here, is going to pull this off, and they're going to the national championship, so we might have our first guy to get themselves a ring, and they are up by 5 here. Screen set up. Cal needs to keep them out of the end zone. You can hold them to a field goal and still keep it a 1-score game, but you cannot allow a touchdown here. Handoff up the middle, breaking a tackle. He's got the first down at the 24-yard line, and Georgia continuing to move this football. 2.5 minutes to play, just about. Throwing, clean pocket, and open man, touchdown. Georgia, 2-score lead, and they are going to close that deal and win a national championship, as Cal just couldn't do anything once they got the football. So Georgia takes home a 2-score victory, and we finally got a player with the ring. And like I said, Elkins wasn't going to play. His injury literally lasted 1 week after the season ended. And Dymania goes and has himself not only a good season, but he was a big-time contributor in that national championship. Next guy, Javier Boss, he's going to go to Michigan. So got Michigan on the board here, and they got another player. Elkins, I guess he is going to be playing now, and he's not got a random injury to stop him from actually getting better and maybe getting himself into the NFL if there's still time for it. I don't know if he's really going to be at that point where it's going to be possible, because he lost a year of development in some aspects, because while he still get the off-season training, he didn't get anything from the in-season and the playing and the experience. So, you know, on top of that, he was already an impact dev player. He was already going to be a little bit slower on the curve compared to some of these other guys. So, I mean, you could say injuries really derailed his opportunities. And unfortunately, we got our second cut. But luckily, this is the only other cut that we're going to have. We only had 2 cuts out of the 25, but Steiner for Syracuse does get cut. Syracuse has become an absolute juggernaut in this Dynasty save file, so, you know, they're doing fine. They've already won a national championship once or twice. I mean, we've seen one of them. And Javier Boss looking pretty decent. Number 2 overall prospect, 79 overall, but unfortunately got that impact development. He is going to be held back by that, but we're going to see if he can kind of overcome it. Some of these guys do. Some of these guys just are good regardless. And Elkins finds himself in some playoff action here as they're going to throw a deep first play. And I just don't understand how this always happens. First play, big play, but then the track down, so they stop them short. First down and goal. Will it even matter? No, it won't. They immediately punch it in. And Texas having to go for 2 to make it the full 7-point game. Throwing here on the run. He's got it, and they say he didn't get in. He caught it short of the marker, had to come back for the football. And now Florida throwing one deep themselves, and they got a big play. Took them 2 plays, and they got them all the way in the end zone, and now they're going for 2 to make it a field goal game. The handoff is going to be stopped just short, so these teams find themselves in the same situation. A 1-point game. Texas, they're going up top, and this is just a shootout. This ball thrown a little short, has to make an adjustment on it, so it maybe prevented a touchdown, but they still are down the field with another one, and that play, the defender just flat out missed, and they got a touchdown. The defender, I think he just misplayed the ball, and he got him wide open. Texas this time, they get the 2-point conversion. It's a 7-point game, and Florida now has a little time to play if they're going to go and try to do their thing, and they're not going to. Picked off, taking it the other way, and that's a touchdown for Texas to seal this one up. And they go and put up 24 points in the 4th quarter in a game with a little bit of fireworks here. And they're going to take down Elkins, who's going to end his career with at least he's playing, I mean, from that season-ending injury, but it's overall just not going to be enough, it seems like, to get him into the NFL, and he's just not going to have that extra time. If he was able to play an extra season, he probably would have gotten there, but he couldn't. The injury really messed with him. Dymania, beast, one of my favorites, and he's going to go and get drafted. And Florida, they're going to be okay. They immediately bounce back and get another one of these top players. We have this defensive tackle here who he's been all right. I mean, he's had some nice years, but overall wise hasn't been spectacular, just kind of in that mid to high 80s range. A lot of these guys are just on that fringe, that 86, 87, and even sometimes getting to that 88 overall mark, but it definitely has been something where the threshold you need to be for a defensive lineman to get drafted is definitely different. I mean, I've noticed it with positions being, you know, all kinds of all over the place, because I've even seen like 83 overall tight ends drafted. Seems like the tight end threshold is a lot lower, but defensive lineman seems to be like among the highest, because you need to be like 88 bare minimum just to even sneak into day 3, whereas I've seen 85s, 86s, stuff like that for other positions be good enough. I mean, 87 here, like I said, just good enough to sneak your way in. I mean, a couple of 87s have been undrafted so far, so like 87 seems like the absolute lowest you could be, because a couple of 87s went undrafted, and 87 there just barely snuck in. So defensive linemen definitely have a stricter criteria to get drafted than some of these other positions that I've seen. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on when it comes to your own dynasties, and if you think certain players should or shouldn't be drafted. It would be nice if some of the drafting was a bit more production based and actually mattered how good they did, which I'm sure there's minor factors with how good they do, but some of these players will have like 85 overall but be cracked out with their seasons, and they won't get drafted over an 87 overall who didn't do much. So I'd like to see that get a little bit better for next college football game. But I obviously am having a lot of fun with a lot of these experiments and everything. Art Moore is the next guy we have. He went to USC. Javier Boss is, despite being an impact dev player, he's growing, he's getting better, he's doing his thing. So, he's at that 87 overall mark, and he's still potentially got another year in him if he wants to. I don't think he'd be declaring at 87, potentially 88 overall if he gets a little bit better throughout the year. The next guy here at Florida, I'm going to try and pronounce this one. I believe it's Wallaba is what I'm going to go with. Again, correct me if I'm wrong with any of these pronunciations, but I do very much value in these games with like Madden and college football draft classes and the high school classes is good name bases. One thing I really didn't like in like NCAA 14, for example, the name diversity was awful. Like every like 10 players was like Smith, Williams, Johnson, like just the most generic names. I like that there's a lot more names in the database. I may not be able to pronounce all of them, but I will try, and I will be happy that there is not a bunch of just John Smiths in every high school recruiting class. But next guy here we have Seth Hart. He's going to be the number 1 rated prospect. Like I've seen with these defensive linemen, I mean, this is probably going to end up being the highest average for, overall prospects, because a lot of these guys, majority of them are top 5 overall prospects, a number of number 1 guys. Very rarely have we seen one of these guys not be a top 10 overall prospect in the nation. Hart's going to go to Memphis, so a little bit of a steal there for Memphis to go and snag the top rated prospect in the nation from the rest of the guys. Boss, hey, that's pretty good. 91 overall. Like I said, with some of these impact players, some of them will supersede the development that some of these other guys get, saddled with. But 91 overall is one of the best that we have seen. And I don't know if anyone exactly is going to catch what Sullivan did getting to a 93. It's very rare that I have seen in these videos for players to get that 94, 95 plus. I mean, that is just rare air for these players to get to. So maybe it's a little hopeful to ask for someone to eclipse 93 overall, but maybe someone here can do it. Art Moore's looking really nice right now, and just pretty early on into his career, and he's already taken a massive leap, 87 overall, so maybe he could be the guy to do it. Seth Hart's going to be an elite development player going into his freshman season, a 79 overall, so number 1 overall prospect at Memphis, so he's going to get some more opportunities to play potentially. Maybe he could be the guy to do it for us. Of all the seasons, individual seasons that I have done in these videos, this upcoming one is one of the wildest and craziest and one of the most fun. We have Javier Boss making All-American, and we got 2 playoff teams. We got USC and Nebraska, so Nebraska in the first round against Wyoming. They go and do their thing. I mean, 52 points put up, a lot in the fourth quarter. They go and move on to the second round. So we got 2 teams in the second round. It's Nebraska versus Jacksonville State, and Jacksonville State has the football down by 7, about 3.5 to play, and the read option's going to get them close to midfield, 49-yard line, first down and 10. Trying to get that game tie-in drive, running back with the football, and a spin move, and he's going to go and get himself about 25 yards, and a big one there. And now we jumped ahead, 3rd and 2. The lefty quarterback throwing, and he's going to get sacked. So Jacksonville State now having to settle for a field goal, and the kick is on the way and good. So Nebraska, they're going to get the football and try to run things out here. And the best part about this, Nebraska's quarterback, the Cornhuskers quarterback's name is Corn, and he's going to get the ceiling first down. I think that is just funny and ironic and great that their quarterback's name for the Cornhuskers is just Corn. They're going to be going to the national championship pretty handily. Syracuse, like I said, they've been going crazy in this dynasty. Not quite this time around. USC, on the other hand, let's go to the other side of the bracket. They go and take care of business against Washington. And now USC's on to the semifinals, and we could be potentially getting a matchup between 2 of our teams. We've never had this before. East Carolina throwing an interception. They are down by 4 and now giving the football to the Trojans. And now USC trying to seal this one up. I mean, there's been a lot of situations where teams get the football 3 minutes to go and they don't let the other team see it again. There's been a lot of, clock chewing offense, but a sack there is going to give them an opportunity. So one more chance potentially to try to make a drive to get into the end zone, win this game. Minute to play. It is 4th down and very long after a lot of tough plays, but they get it all back and a lot more to the 20-yard line, and East Carolina keeps it alive. There's only about 20 seconds to play. They're running out of time. 4th down and 7. Just nowhere to go with the football. All the time in the world, but no one was open, and USC has it. Pick 6, and I mean, you can't even get on them for rushing it. I mean, they tried to take all their time in the pocket. No one got open, and we got a national championship for the first time where we're gonna get to see 2 of our players on the video being the subject of the video playing against each other. And with about 3 minutes to play, it's a close one. So USC has the football down by 3, and they're chucking one deep, and they got a man, and they got it on the run, and they got it into the end zone for the touchdown. And now we turn things to Corn and the Cornhuskers to try to get themselves a big play, a diving grab. What does he got next now? 2nd down, handing it off. Going to be the running back outside, got the 1st down, and to about the 46-yard line, so they are in enemy territory. They can take their time here. They got plenty. Has Corn to throw it, and he's got a 1st down, moving the chains. 2-minute warning has hit, and they are in great position to try to get this, and they're going to throw one, and that was a dangerous ball. The defender almost swatted it away. They're going to get it. Goal to go now. Jumping ahead, 3rd down and goal. 1.5 to play. Corn back in the end zone, and that's a touchdown for the Huskers. And now it's a 3-point game in their favor, and USC has a minute to play and a sack, and this could be the sealer of the national championship here. 4th down, last chance, and they got a completion in between 2 defenders. Timeout used, and little time to play now. Close to field goal range. They're almost there, and now they are there. 30 seconds to play. They tick the clock down and set themselves up for a field goal that is good. And then everything gets a little confusing here. We're in overtime, but Nebraska has the football at their own 21-yard line. I just hit sim to end of game on slow, and this is what I got. Why is Nebraska backed up? They're being put at a disadvantage, but they don't care about the disadvantage. They're going to go all the way on a big play and get themselves right back into where they should have been to begin with. It's goal to go. 3rd down and goal now, and the power, Corn in, and Nebraska, they only should have been going 25 yards. They go 79, and then we go to the next part, and they have the football again. Corn has the football, throwing one short, caught, and that's game. Nebraska wins the national championship. What is going on with this game? I think we just played NFL overtime rules in college, because they got the ball basically after a touchback and just scored a touchdown, and that was it. USC didn't even get a chance. This is why NFL overtime stinks, because this is what happens. It looked like Nebraska was the one getting screwed over with that, starting field position, but it turns out at least they got the football. USC didn't even get to possess it. So probably the most dodgy championship officiating game rules making on the fly that you'll ever see. I guess we gotta move on, but that's awesome. Also stupid, but awesome at the same time, because eventually you play a game long enough, you get to see some stupid stuff happen. I've seen my fair share of glitches in this game. It's not a perfect game. I still love this game, but man, that was ridiculous. So Nebraska gets a national championship, and Art Moore gets to just watch his team not get the football, I guess. Walters, yeah, there's your national champion right there. So, we move on and try to figure out if we could do anything as entertaining as that, because Art Moore, he's back for another season. He's looking really good. He can go and try to redeem himself, but I feel like the university is cursed or something, or there's some great forces in the world of college football making sure USC doesn't touch a national championship. Seth Hart is going to be pretty nice, taking a solid jump up, and he is going to be, in that mid-80s overall tier, so he's going to be looking good, and still a lot of room to grow. I also glossed over this because of the madness that was happening, but the top player went to North Texas. So Brink is a 78 overall, star development, was the #1 player in the nation. He goes to North Texas. North Texas has been really good in this dynasty as well. I don't show everything that happens, but yeah, North Texas has developed themselves into like a perennially ranked team. So Sure, good on them for getting the #1 player. Walters, I mean, he ends up as an 87 overall with decent production. Artmore, you know, he has a nice season, double-digit sacks. Hart, he's all right, has the production. We got to draft a player here, so that's cool. And Nebraska now, they are doubling up. They get the defensive tackle, so they're going to have Walters going into his final season, 89 overall in base. And they're going to also have that defensive tackle, so at least for one season, they'll have two players at once, which we haven't seen a whole lot of overlapping so far. I mean, in previous videos, we've seen teams get, you know, two or three even at the same time. I mean, that cornerback video was ridiculous with what happened in like a 7-year stretch of one team getting everybody. But Artmore, I mean, despite that big jump Artmore took, you know, going from 79 to 87, he's basically spent the rest of his time here going, you know, slight increases. In this case, he didn't even really get better at all. So Seth Hart, you know, another player who took a decent jump at one point and now has just kind of stagnated in that mid-80s overall range. You know, I'm waiting for one of these players, though, to take that, you know, second big jump, you know, get a +7 or +8 or something, and then get like another +4, you know, because we've seen players in the past go +12, 13 overalls throughout the entirety of their careers, and I want to see one of these players hit that, you know, 15 plus overall in their time here. But we are running out of time here. Byron Tutt is player number 23 out of 25, so we don't got many left. Walters ends up having himself a pretty solid career overall, you know, a lot of production, a lot of time starting, so Nebraska, you know, definitely treated him a lot better than they did Lashley and actually let that dude play. Artmore is a monster. Walters goes and gets himself drafted, and we have the next guy, Tutt, going to Middle Tennessee, so, you know, interesting landing spot for him. Artmore, you know, back for his final season, he could have declared. I mean, he was an 89 overall and put up back-to-back double-digit sack seasons, but hey, here he is, 91 overall, so another guy who's one of the better guys that we have had. Seth Hart, he is an 87 overall, so not bad. I would have liked to see him be a little bit better considering he was at Memphis, had opportunities to play, elite development. Brink, really just not much for him so far. I mean, just +2s across the board, and he's not really in the mix either to be a high-level contributing starter for them. Speaking of not being in good position to be a player for them, this guy just isn't seeing the field, and he's also just not getting better either. I don't know what the development staff at Nebraska is doing, because they're looking to be a team that's out in, I believe, 3 in total, and Lashley and that guy are not doing their thing, and you know, maybe they've had one success guy in Cameron Walters, but I mean, you're 1 out of 3 right now in terms of success, and if you're getting the #1 overall player at their position and you're only getting 33% of them to actually be decent, that's a little bit of an issue. Artmore, his sack numbers do go down. That's fine. I mean, he's a talented player, and by that point, they're probably just double teaming the heck out of him. Or at least I'm just going to act like that's what happened, because that'd be the smart thing to do. He's a first-round pick, clear cut. Isaiah Brink, though, there you go. That's a nice jump. No +2s this time. He goes and gets a +5 for himself going into his final season. So he's on the brink of being drafted, as his name would indicate. 87 overall is right there. Ojeda is the lowest overall, you know, player that we have gotten in terms of their high school recruiting overall big board, you know, rank, not their positional rank. Every single player has been top 10 except for 2. He's the lowest ranked player we have gotten at a 13th overall rank, that's crazy in itself. Speaking of crazy, Tutt, he's looking pretty crazy. He takes one of those big time leaps early on in his career to potentially be an absolute monster. And we've seen this before. Like I said, we've seen them take that +6, 7, 8. But will they take that next jump? Will they take another +4 or something to be into that upper echelon level player? Here's our final player, George Suarez. So we're going to just kind of get through these players' careers and see if they pop up. Brink gets himself into playoff action against Nebraska. Now, here's the thing. Nebraska, we're not going to be focusing really on them because that defensive tackle just don't play for them. He doesn't do much of anything. An interception here, though, for Nebraska is going to get them the lead, the ball, 3 minutes to play, and all the opportunity in the world to make sure North Texas doesn't touch this again. A handoff here on 3rd down is going to get stopped, though. So field goal try to make it a touchdown game is going to try to make this a little bit more difficult, but the ball hits the upright, and it's no good. Now it's still just a field goal game, and 4th down, pressure in, breaking out of a sack, but not 2. He goes down. And Nebraska, despite that missed field goal, doesn't cost them. They get the stop and they move on. So we're going to hop over to the other side of the bracket where Middle Tennessee is in a game where it's tied with a minute to play and Washington has the football and they're going to be throwing an interception. So the defense does their job, setting the offense up in great field position and an opportunity to win this one in regulation. They're going to run it here. Quarterback gets himself on the edge of field goal range. They maybe could hit it depending on the kicker that they have, but I don't know what Middle Tennessee special teams is looking like, but that's going to be an incredible diving interception by Washington out of nowhere, and they throw a strike over the middle, and now Washington has flipped the script, and they are in a spot where they can end this handoff. It's going to be an open lane, untouched all the way. Washington with the victory. And Middle Tennessee don't know what hit them there. I mean, that was 3 plays on a swing from a potential game-winning field goal to a game-winning touchdown the other way. Tut, I mean, he goes and does his thing. Brink, he gets drafted, so credit to him. He's one of those players that does get drafted. And North Texas, I guess they weren't done with these #1 rated players. The final guy goes to North Texas. So oddly enough, when it comes to the final tally of these videos, we're going to look back and see North Texas got 2 of these guys, and they really became a real player in these, playoff scenarios, and they've made a couple of brackets. Tut, he takes a little bit of a jump, so 89 overall, and he is at the point where he's good enough to declare if he wants to after this season and probably be a day 2 pick. I'm going to hope he stays, and I'm going to hope we get to see if he could develop into something even bigger and better and be arguably better than Sullivan, I would hope. I want to see how high some of these overalls can get. When I do these videos, I'm looking for things I've never seen before. Maybe something within the realms of that's supposed to happen in the game, not, the overtime completely bugging out and breaking and, us playing NFL overtime rules in a college game. But I'd like to see some crazy things happen. You can see Ojeda, very rarely in these do players play their full 4 or 5 year careers in college and just never do anything. What will usually happen is they either make it to a starting role by their senior season or they just will get cut. Ojeda's a rare one where he was there the entire time. He didn't transfer, he didn't get cut, he didn't do anything. He just didn't play. So that, oddly enough, doesn't happen all that much. So Tut also, stuck around. He didn't get better, unfortunately, so staying at an 89 overall as we kind of, are at the final stages here. Maybe someone will find themselves into the playoffs and get us a little bit more action before things end. But Tut, he is making All-American now, and what a season. I mean, he's a monster. He should be going to the draft, but luckily for us, he doesn't. He stays another year, and he gets a +5 overall, 94 overall, 97 with boost, and he takes the crown for the best player that we have had so far, and that is awesome. 94 overall, not many times have we hit that level of an overall in these videos. I think only if I'm off memory, I think in all of these videos with all the positions, we've only ever hit 95 plus one time, and I think it was a wide receiver. So 94 overall, that's going to be among the best that we'll see in this series of videos. And, we did get a little bit of playoff action, but it was not really much here. Miami got smacked around by Penn State. So, Tut making All-American again, no surprise there. He's going to go finish his career out. He didn't put up as much production. Again, I'm just going to assume he got double teamed like crazy and everyone was realizing this dude shouldn't even be playing college football right now. He should be in the NFL. And he's a first-round draft pick in Middle Tennessee. Look at them. They're a 4-star prestige team. Look how good they are. So as we get to the final stretch here, I think when it comes to these videos, I probably won't do any other positional groups. The only ones I haven't done are tight end, because college teams just don't utilize tight ends. There's going to be a lot of times where we just would never see them get used. Offensive line, there's just no gameplay opportunities. And then, I've seen some comments for kicker punter, maybe. I don't know, but as we wrap things up, I think the only videos that I can see myself doing for these are overall #1 players in the nation, and then maybe we could do athletes. We'll see, but as for this video, the experiment is over. All 25 guys are gone, and let's get into all the results, the data, the final tally, and let's get into all of that right now. The defensive line shows us that the location is more spread out than in all the other positions that we have gotten. Usually, Texas and Florida, usual suspects, but then there's always California and Georgia immediately after, who have 3 or 4. California didn't factor in. Georgia had 1. The only other place that had more than 1 was New York, who had 2. everywhere else, there was a bunch of just one-offs and a bunch of places that were able to produce, whether it was defensive end or defensive tackle. They were coming from just about everywhere. I don't have the numbers of all the other videos in front of me, but I would have to guess this was the most unique locations that a player came from. But some of the more specifics in the info for these players, most of them were defensive ends. I mean, it is basically a 2-to-1 split when it came to how often these players were defensive ends or defensive tackles. Defensive tackles, we found some of them were very spectacular, but for the most part, we were getting defensive ends, and the dominant archetype was speed rusher, which not really surprising with these freakish athletes that will be coming out of high school any given year. In the top of the board, they'll always be, freaky bend, speed, burst, athleticism, and so no surprise that speed rusher was the dominant trait. And then run stopper being at the bottom, again, no surprise there. Run stopping is deemed like a 1 or 2 down type of thing, rotation type of guys, not 3 down players. You need pass rushers at the end of the day. And then the average of the players, talent-wise, this is the most high-end talent that we've gotten in any of the videos. There were a lot of number 1 rated players. The lowest we had gotten was 13th, only 2 of them were outside the top 10 in overall players. The average ranked ended up being 4th between them. So, I mean, most of the time it was a top level, top 5 elite prospect. That probably was a big contributing factor to this graphic, which is the fact that just not many of them were busts or low dev players. Just 4 of them were impact or less, no normals, and only 1 was a bust. So most of the players were at the very least like baseline. We were seeing 78, 79 overall star players being kind of the norm, and we got the occasional 80. We got a decent amount, basically a third of them being elite. Obviously we had the occasional stinker being an impact, but even still, some of the impacts, that's not a death sentence for these players. But about a quarter of them being gems, a third of them being elite, and over 80% of the time, these players are at the very least star or even elite. I mean, that's a phenomenal ratio. So in that regard, very much worthy of going after these types of players. With some of the dev paths, I haven't needed to add a 5th season because a lot of the players, majority of the time, won't even make it to a 5th year. Positions like receiver, running back, they don't really catch the red shirt because so many of them played. And I thought it'd be the same with defensive linemen because, there's rotations. There's a lot of players that play on the defensive line. But over half the players that actually played their full career were going into their 5th season, so it felt necessary to add that. You were getting, like I said before, 78, 79. That's about the normal for these guys. But jumping up 82, 85, close to about an 87. And then if you're making it to year 5 as a defensive end or defensive tackle, you're basically an NFL player, because even with how high standards are for the defensive lineman to get drafted, 88 overall doesn't go undrafted. And that's the baseline average for these 5th-year players. We've seen players as high as 80 overall come in. Low was not that bad. The lowest we seen was only 76. So, I mean, all these players were pretty consistent. The highest overall we've seen being a 94 by the end of their career. The biggest 1-year jump, we've seen a couple of +8s, nothing beyond that. We've seen a +15 overall throughout the entirety of the career, and as low as a +7. So it feels like defensive line are a lot more safe and consistent compared to some of these other positions. They don't give me as much variance. There were not that many clearly awful players throughout the course of this video. A couple other quick notes being, those players that made it to a 5th year, 13 out of 25. Now, obviously, 2 got cut, so you could really say 13 out of 23. 5 made it All-American. 5 ended up being in the first round. Still, even with the high standards, 64% of the players did end up getting drafted. And the big one there, 7 of the 25 were the number 1 overall recruits in the nation. So if you're looking for where the most popular position is for the number 1 overall recruits, maybe I just got a loaded batch, but number 1 overall recruits are on the defensive line. And then we get to the best of the best, where there was a lot of really good players, but I think Byron Tutt clearly was the best. I mean, the fact that he didn't declare when he could have, and he stayed for that 5th season, took that big jump and became the highest overall player, 94 overall defensive tackle who goes and racks up 35 sacks. I mean, he was unbelievable. Definitely the best player. I really liked Alton Artmore. 36 sacks. Maybe he got robbed of a national championship opportunity, but he was awesome. Cameron Walters, maybe the weakest of the bunch of this group, but he was overall very productive, and he still went in the third round. Greg Newton, if it wasn't for the fact that he left college after his third season and basically was only a full-time starter throughout the course of a season for a year, I mean, he would have been even better, but he started as an 80, took a big jump, got really good, and then left for the NFL, so he was still worth a mention because of how good and how fast he got good. And then Matt Sullivan, he was the best end of the video, who just was incredible. 93 overall, stuck around for, you know, maybe an extra year when he didn't have to, 30 sacks, round one player, so all these guys were really good, and I mean, Byron Tutt will be among the best players that we've had in any of these videos, so you know, you can let me know who you think was the best, who you liked, and what you want to see next, as I don't really know if there's much else for me to do positionally. I think from here on, it would be like the overall #1 recruits or athletes or something like that. Maybe kickers if you really want to see it that bad. But overall, just let me know what you want to see. Like, comment, and subscribe, as all that stuff is super helpful as I continue to get these videos out. And I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one.